Right, everyone, evening, and I think I've greeted everyone who is here. So you'll see that our exam prep is slightly different now. This recording is obviously a follow-on from last week's recording where we discussed the non-negotiables. Please make sure in terms of those non-negotiables that you can answer each of those from a theoretical perspective in relation to each of the case studies. What I've done is I've ignored the case studies that previously were given to us and only focused on the new ones that were loaded and created questions around those. So that's the intention with tonight. And let's see how that goes. So the first one that I've not seen before is PEPCOR. Now, I'm going to make predictions about questions, but remember, I do not see this paper. I do not know what's in the paper. These questions are based on trends from past exam papers. Unfortunately, what has happened with some of these is that the papers have become slightly dated because the textbook has had a significant update. So please take this with a pinch of salt. I can't promise you that I'm going to be as accurate as I usually am in terms of making these predictions. To also just say, you have to study everything, because last year someone got a case study and then accused me of not identifying that case study. I do not know what is in the paper, and in particular, when you miss the exam, or you write the exam and you write the supplementary exam and you have to write the special exam. I can't tell you what will be in the special exam. I don't even know whether the special exam will come from the case studies. So the PEPCOR holdings, I'm assuming that you guys have all had a glance at these case studies. So the others are definitely, I've seen them before, but it doesn't mean that they won't use them again. But for me, the first and the last stuff you do are these questions. Insofar these questions are concerned, these are the two case studies that I've not seen before, so I created questions on those. But when we look at the non-negotiables from last week, you need to be able to answer each of those non-negotiable questions in relation to these case studies and the others. The truth is, you have to study everything. Go, Vijesh. Vijesh, we can't hear you, Vijesh, no? Okay, we'll wait for Vijesh. Vijesh, when you've sorted your mic out, just interrupt. I'm going to carry on. Okay, we'll just type here. I think there might be an issue in terms of the mic. Right, so the first question that is a non-negotiable for me, and it does lend itself. Go, Vijeshna. Vijesh, your hand is up. No, I've not done it yet. I wanted to discuss it before people worked on these documents. I'll upload it, obviously, and make it available, but I have not done that yet. So you'll have this document available. Okay, so in terms of the first non-negotiable, and I'd be very surprised, to be honest with you, if this is not a question. Now, obviously, they'll phrase it differently, but the reality is, and there's almost two questions built into this one, so you need to be able to answer both components because we do not know which of the components they'll select. So in terms of business level strategies, and we talk about the business level strategy adopted by PEP. Oh gosh, and I'm going back to front. We'll just do PEP because I've already started focusing on it. Now, the simple truth is, if you know anything about PEP, and if you read some of the detail in here, you'll see that they adopt a cost leadership strategy. Everyone knows that PEP is cost leadership. There is significant evidence in there that PEP is cost leadership. So in terms of discussing these advantages, now you'll remember that cost leadership and these kinds of strategies are business level strategies, and you generally will focus around somewhere here. But for me, this is a cost leadership strategy. If you want to discuss it as the best value strategy, as long as you can give enough evidence, I will mark it. But I think we know that PEP lends itself to a cost leadership strategy, and the slides and the textbooks suggest that as well. So it is Learning Unit 1. It's about slide 23. The advantages and disadvantages, please, and this comes back to the case, to the assignments that were done. Just remember, these are discussed in terms of Porter's five forces. So if you know Porter's five forces, you'll be able to discuss these. So we know that they're a cost leadership strategy. We know that the entire focus is on always being efficient, reducing input costs, and passing cost savings on to their customers. Okay. Does anyone shop at PEP, or has anyone shopped at PEP in the past? It's not really a place where I would shop, but it definitely is entry level. Nice, Vijesh. I think, I'm pretty sure we've picked up baby clothes from there in the past, because kids, those are fantastic. And it's quite interesting, the PEP Home, how much cheaper they are than Mr. Price Home. Well, that's exactly, Vijesh. Now, our babies grow so quickly. Presents for people we don't like, Aniska. Right, so you'll know that one. And there are two questions in one there. Non-negotiable, study that. I would be very surprised if that's not the question. Okay, in terms of this strategy, and like an idiot, let me just update that. Choice of business level strategy using the relevant criteria. So please be aware that this might be another one that they will ask. So we go down to the bottom, and I've now lost that particular set of slides. Please go down here. Also, just in terms of cost leadership, low cost provider, love this slide, love the discussion on that slide. And then in terms of evaluating strategies from 43 onwards, please make sure that you discuss that. They might not ask you all those criteria, but ensure that you have studied those. So those we also discussed last week when we discussed the non-negotiables. Okay, is Ilse struggling to get in? Oh, Ilse, you here? Genigtig, man. Didn't see you there. So the second or the third question that for me is a non-negotiable is this one here. Why has this not, what the actual heck? What? This is bizarre that it's become 8. Oh my word, that's frustrating me. Okay, so it should update those. Right, so the next one is innovation intended. Oh, wonderful spelling, Dutchman. Okay, intended approach to deal with the economic downturn. Guys, this is definitely, for me, an example of value innovation. So when we look at value innovation, no, before I look at that, let's look at 3 first. So it's apparent that they're going to encounter a tough economic environment, and it is the potential corporate strategies that they may consider. So just remember, when we enter that kind of tough environmental conditions, you generally would default to these kinds of organizations, these kinds of organizational strategies. I just want to get there. So they generally would fall in here. But I think if they ask you to discuss an appropriate strategy, and again, guys, I'd be very, very surprised if they don't ask you that. I would look at this one here. Okay. Yeah, a turnaround strategy, but it very much is this kinds of things, a cost-cutting strategy, removing non-essential items, etc. We often do that when the environment gets quite tough. The other option you can use in terms of that is very much a hold and maintain strategy, which is just doing market penetration because you do not want to overextend yourself. But I think you are more likely to be operating in this area here, the kind of just divestiture, very, very carefully getting rid of things that are inefficient. Again, you need to study all those corporate strategies. And again, I'll accept anything if you can argue and find support for your argument from the case study. I will mark and I will send through a request that the memo gets updated. And generally people listen to me at the IIE. So that is the tough economic environment. You will definitely see a corporate strategy question. The innovation one is this, because there are lovely little excerpts in here that they talk about value innovation, and it's somewhere here. Okay, yeah, this operating environment to develop innovative ways to ensure that. So it's very much value innovation that they're looking at. So in terms of the case studies or the slides, okay, so value innovation, Control F. So it's that one there. So unique offerings that essentially meet needs, but also unique, and there's low cost. Okay, so have a glance at that as an option in terms of value innovation. I don't think there's anything else that I would be concerned about in terms of that one, but there are lovely little snippets in here to support why they might need a hold and maintain strategy. Okay. And then the next one that I had looked at is, value innovation. And then I looked at, they will always ask some sort of international expansion question. So I just said, advise Pepcore, this is obviously all made up, that should they want to move into Nigeria, what particular mode would they adopt? So you guys would have done that in your second assignment. We know that those modes are there. Again, make sure that you give me relevant support for that particular one. And then just in terms of the organization as a system, yeah, I think we look at understanding organizations, they need a range of qualities. So here we look at your leaders. The qualities are these here. They haven't asked this one in a while, but remember, absorptive capacity is taking information in. Adaptive capacity is changing your mindset around what guides certain rules about an organization. And then managerial wisdom is that intuitive ability to know what is right and what is wrong. I struggled to find a question for PEP, but it doesn't mean that they won't. What likely will be the question is they love asking stuff on, in particular with the last learning unit. They love asking questions on the stakeholders. So you can imagine that there will be a stakeholder question in here as well. Insofar as this one is concerned, this one gives us a lot more to work with. So I'd be very surprised if this is not your exam question. Okay, I'd be very surprised if your case study in the exam plus your questions don't come from this one. It's either this one or PEPCOR. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. Again, I don't see the paper beforehand. So please just remember that when you think that you can only use this information. You have to study absolutely everything. It is a lovely case study, to be honest with you, and it was quite easy to find questions for this case study. So the second one is, again, the business level strategy that will be adopted. In all likelihood, guys, it will be differentiation, because there's some magic tidbits in here that talks about the kind of digital transformation, customer-centric. They also talk about delivering, and there's something about uniqueness in here as well. Control F, unique. You see, unique value propositions, tailored products, superior customer service. So you definitely will see that. I can tell you now that it will be a specific differentiation approach. And remember, in terms of differentiation, so we go back to our learning unit 1, our business level strategies, and we know where that is. Where is that guy? Genigtig. I'm irritating myself. My apologies. And differentiation, uniqueness, and uniqueness that customers are prepared to pay for, spend a lot of money on research and development, making sure that we're special, that we stand out from the crowd. Definitely that will be the question. I'd be very surprised. It's unlikely that they'll ask that question on appropriateness, etc., on evaluating strategies, because this has not been implemented yet. So they can't perfectly use that question, but be prepared to answer that question. Again, in terms of this, for me, this is very much a value innovation thing, because it's much of a muchness in terms of what they're doing, but they are offering a nice combination of something unique and cutting edge. And I think people will have some sort of savings because of the nature of this kind of bank. It's going to be an online bank. It is more efficient. Okay. Guys, and then new innovations. Yeah, we haven't seen this in a bit, but if you think of what they're doing as an option, they're launching into quite a tough existing industry with anything from Standard Bank to Capitec to Time Bank, etc., etc. So this is a tough environment. This is a shark-infested set of waters. It is a feeding frenzy. So you will need to discuss them as a red ocean strategy. If they say discuss as a blue ocean strategy, I'd find it very strange, because they're not really creating a new industry. Guys, and then just in terms of that, yeah, discuss the corporate strategy adopted. Again, this case study lends itself magically to that particular, oh, bugger off, to that particular question. And you'll see here, it is in terms of what they're doing, it is related diversification. Remember, where you use existing technology to create a new organization for existing customers, it is related diversification. If you want to push it to product development, I'd really be reluctant to market. It definitely is because they set up a new business related diversification. Again, for me, it just naturally lends itself to that particular question. And then in terms of strategic leaders, this is a question that they love asking and they don't always ask it in full. Um, yeah, what leaders must do to create an integrated organizational system. The Okay, this is fun, isn't it? Right, so you'll see here, this is Learning Unit 6. Um, Control F, integrated. Oh, what? Hold on a second. Let me see why I can't find that. I'm frustrating myself and I might be looking at the wrong learning unit. Okay, my apologies. It is Learning Unit 5. They love asking this one. What must leaders do in terms of creating that integrated organizational system? So it is Learning Unit 5, slide 25 onwards, 23 onwards. Have a glance at that. That is one that they haven't asked in the past, but they love asking that one, okay? The last one that I thought we would look at is stakeholders. They love asking stakeholders as part of Learning Unit 6. So the stakeholders, you'll find them in here. Okay, and generally it's those guys. Please don't mess this up. I cannot believe because last year I predicted this question and a vast number of people didn't even attempt to answer the question on who our stakeholders are. My goodness me, if you don't know our stakeholders now, you need to ask for your fees back. I was absolutely blown away when this happened last year. So, as much as I would love to tell you that I have all the answers and questions here, that is the best I have. My suggestion, though, is I would 100% make sure that I look at those priority questions, discuss the theories around the priority questions. The previous recording obviously attended to that. I uploaded that today, and then obviously this one as well to do these. Please make sure in terms of both of these that you work out the answers in case this is the exam. But I really, 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 this is the toughest one that I've ever had to predict as a consequence of the textbook change. Right. Any questions? So you need to download the exam brief. I can't share the exam brief, but for me, this is first and last. Second and second last, the priority questions, and then last, the everything else. Study everything else, okay? So in between doing the priority questions and these case study questions, you need to study everything. Trust my slides. My slides are blimmin' good. I hope so, Vijesh. I feel so guilty because I normally am a lot better at predicting, but either my brain is kiss at the moment or honestly, because of the textbook change, I've been caught a bit off guard. Guys, any questions, any concerns? I just want to ask that before I stop the recording. Okay, I'll stop the recording then. Let's just wait for the recording to